Sherry, I meant to send you a note saying the treasurer report looked good. I liked your changes. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
All right, I believe we are live on YouTube. Kristen is going to do her little bit to get it going on the website so people can access it there as well.
It's up there now.
Very good. Thank you.
So we're waiting for Caroline. Did she say anything?
I didn't hear from her, so I would expect
be
her
on
to be
there.
along. It's not quite 6 o'clock yet. So
Okay.
Jeff, I hope you had a good trip.
It was good. It was very good. Good and important. So
Good.
yeah, nice to see something different. You know, Google Trats my thing. Every month I look on Google and I see where I go, and it's a very small circle.
Wow.
Just nice to see that the world is getting to the point where, you know, things aren't fine, but we can pick our head up a little bit. So
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Did you go to Michigan?
I did.
Whoa.
I didn't go anywhere.
Didn't go anywhere too far in Michigan. Just kind of stayed at the house. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have everyone. My clock says 6 o'clock, so we'll get going. I'm going to call the meeting, the April 12th, 2021 meeting to order. Thanks everyone for showing up. The first order of business is public participation.
Okay, I don't have any public participation. I just want to mention I did get email. It wasn't specifically towards us, but I thought I'd let you know anyway, from a gentleman who I believe doesn't live in the district, but that's okay. And he was concerned because he felt his mask was CDC compliant, but our policy, it was one of the types that is not permitted in the library under the policy, and he was a little disturbed about that. And we had just an email exchange back and forth where I explained that we use CDC guidelines to inform our policy, but our policy can be different. And if we err to the side of caution. So there are some types of masks that may or may not be CDC compliant. We're not going to assess that, but we know they just don't meet our guidelines for the library. So.
Okay, that's noted for the record. In that communication ended in an agreeable format, correctly?
I had a response. I did not receive a response to my response, but a response was requested, and I emailed back and just sort of explained about the policy and where, how we came to those conclusions. And
Okay.
There we are.
Okay, that sounds good. The next order of business is the treasurer's oath of office.
So, Mark, you actually have to administer this. So, on page 2 of this, you'll see the oath, and this is for Sherry.
Okay. So Sherry, if you could raise your hand and say the oath as on page 2, and then we will it'll be
File
good.
it. Yep.
We'll file it with the appropriate parties. Okay, so Sherry, if you could I guess for the good of the meeting, raise your right hand and say the following words. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge,
and that I will faithfully discharge,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my ability,
the duties of the office of Bethlehem Public Library Board Treasurer.
the duties of the office of Bethlehem Public Library Board Treasurer.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Now moving right along, the previous meeting minutes. People take a look at those.
I just wanted to mention there's two. The second one is the short one for the 19th Long Range Plan Committee meeting.
Okay. So if I'll take a motion on those two sets of meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, any second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand quick. Any opposed, abstentions? Okay, that motion carries. I need a motion on the long-range planning meeting minutes as well.
So moved.
Okay, any second?
I'll second.
Okay, great. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposition, abstention? Okay, that motion carries as well. So we'll go into the financial report, treasurer's update.
So you see the revenue and expense report through the month of March, which is pretty consistent with past months. Currently, we're tracking at about 7% under budget. In this month's packet, we've included the detailed report for the 9 months ended March 31st. I don't know if anybody has any questions about the report or has had a chance to look at it.
I just had a question on a couple of things. On the pilot line, I wasn't sure how we get over 100% on the pilot payments. Is that because is the estimate when the budget?
It's an estimate. When we put the budget together, it's an estimate.
Okay. Great, thank you.
And I know, Charmaine, you have a question about miscellaneous. It's
Right, on the expense report, I just happened to notice that I think it was budgeted at $3,000, well, anticipated $3,000 from last year's planning, and it's now up to $9,000 in terms of expenses. So I just wasn't sure what that.
right. Well, there's some expenses in there that are COVID related.
Okay.
We paid for the sheds for the book returns, which was about
Okay.
$3,600, and we're renting pods for furniture storage, which is like $398 a month. We purchased some software for credit card processing, which we're in the process of trying to get set up. That's in there too.
Thank you for the explanation.
Sure, no problem.
Jerry, could you take a minute and talk to everybody? I'm not sure that everybody had a chance to note the new information that you included in your write-up. I particularly had a question on the section about rates, but maybe you could give an overview of what.
Absolutely. That was going to be the next thing that I was going to talk about. I wanted to get through the reports first. So just to draw your attention to my report, Tanya and I did meet with our new relationship manager at TD Bank, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and it was a very productive meeting, especially for me. I just learned a little bit more about our relationship and how things work. We reviewed our accounts and we reviewed the analysis statement, which shows all our charges and earning credits. We realized that there are some opportunities for some savings in some of the charges, not anything super significant, but where we can save, we might as well try. For instance, we have an inactive account that we could close. We get charged for that every month. There's a few other small opportunities for some savings here and there. We have an irrevocable line of credit for $8 million through the Bank of Pittsburgh. And this collateralizes our deposits. The relationship manager suggested that since we never have more than 5 million on deposit, that it might make sense to reduce that. So that's something that I thought, I could have a conversation with her when the line of credit comes due for renewal, depending on how, the trustees feel. I thought that there was that the charge for the line of credit is based on the size of it. And I did ask her about that, and she said, no, there's no additional charge that the bank covers it. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I do want to follow up with her, but it seems to me that we should have a line of credit that's in line with what we use, with what we need, not any more than what we need. We also talked about rates and the rate environment. I've listed what some of the current rates are, and as you can see, we're actually earning, as low as it is, a higher rate of interest on our money market account than we would in any CDs or treasuries right now. The bank did drop our rate from 0.2% to 1.5%, effective April 1st. That's pretty much where we are right now.
Sherry, what is New York City class?
It's a New York Cooperative Liquid Assets Security System. It's a highly liquid investment fund. It's for the public sector. I'm not sure if the library could participate in it if we wanted to, but it's for the public sector.
Okay. Okay. And I do want to talk to you as you get more information. Maybe we can talk tomorrow when I come over and we sit down.
Mm-hmm.
I have questions for you too about the irrevocable letter of credit and how that works and who pays for it and how it's priced. But we can talk about that tomorrow. And I think that was all I had on it. Thank you. I think showing that information, as you've said you would do, like the rate information, maybe quarterly, embedded in the board report is good. It lets people know where we are and what's going on with rates.
Right.
And Sherry, I just wondered along the same lines on the line of credit, if there is no charge to keep it at a higher amount, is there really any downside to doing that? I'm just thinking in case of emergency or, some other global event where we need a line of credit for some reason. Is there any downside to keeping it high?
Yeah, I do. I want to follow up with the relationship manager on that. We didn't have a chance to reconnect. That's a good point. And if there is no downside and there is no cost, then maybe it doesn't matter. And actually, I apologize. I've been calling it a line of credit. It's not a line of credit. It's a letter of credit. But that's a good point. And I'll follow up with the relationship manager and either by email or have a discussion with the finance committee about it.
All right, great, thanks.
Sure.
It sounds like since more than one person had a question about it, maybe just bring it some point, either the resolution or the recommendation back at the next meeting if you have enough time between now and then.
Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong, but does it renew in July?
It renews in July, or if our balance were to significantly increase, it would increase to match the balance. But yes, it renews mid-July.
Okay, I thought so. So we have a little bit of time.
Yes.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, one quick one on the report on page 12. We're at 97% on the real property taxes. Do we expect to close that?
We just got a deposit last week from the school district for $121,000, which brings us we're 30 cents off.
Okay.
Wow, great.
Right, I forgot to mention that. Right, thank you, Tanya.
An intolerable variance.
Yeah. Okay, any questions? Any other questions on the financial report or treasurer report? Okay, we'll move on to personnel report.
Okay, so we're going to look down on page.
I think we need a vote on the.
Oh, on the financial report. Yep. Sorry.
Okay, so let's take a vote on it. I need a motion on the financial report.
I make a motion, we accept the financial report as presented in the board packet,
Thanks, Mary. Any second?
including the disbursement reports submitted.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, Charmaine, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, abstentions? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Personnel.
Okay, so you see on page 19, there are two positions that are going to be unfilled. We've had two retirements, and one is a part-time librarian one, and one is a librarian two. So one of our supervisors from the Public Services Department is retiring. Congratulations to him, and seeking permission to refill both of those positions.
Jeff, can I just ask that you kind of finagle your microphone some way that for me, I'm hearing some, but not all. And I'm working with my volume over here, but I'm not sure if it's right under your, great, thank you.
Okay, let me try that. Is that a little bit more clear?
Yes, thank
Does that
you.
work better? Okay, fair enough. So these are two positions. It's a full-time librarian two, which is one of our supervisors in the Public Services Department. And then a part-time librarian one. Both of these positions are open due to retirement. So
Do we do anything for people retiring? Is there any?
We handle it inside the department. We don't, the library as a government doesn't, make an official, there's no watch or something like that, but we handle that in the departments.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, good.
And Jeff, were these surprises expected?
Not
surprising.
Not unsurprises. How about not surprises? How about,
Okay.
at some point, this is, hey man, we're all, that's the goal for everybody, right? So There you go. Not one of those ones where we know a year in advance though. Does that make sense?
Right.
So
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Works for me.
If we're ready, I'll make a motion to accept the personnel report as presented on page 19.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Any second? Michelle? Okay, great. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, abstentions? Okay, motion carried.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to talk just for another minute about this really quickly, just about the plans in general, now that we have those positions. There's some civil service things going on right now. The test for librarian 2 is about to be issued or is ongoing. We're not 100% sure. And so that position may be a while before we can fill that. So my intention is to fill that librarian 1 that's up on the sheet higher than that was approved to fill a while ago. It's just we're getting a lot of too many full-time people not in the department. It gets hard for us to staff. So I'm going to fill that librarian 1 no matter what. Keep those 2 temps for now, and then so that would be I will not have the temporary positions and all of these full-time positions filled at the same time. So just for a timing issue right now, the temps are doing a great job really helping us fill out the schedule with the open positions. But I'd like to move forward and move forward with that librarian 1 because that's one we can fill much more quickly because of how the status of the list for that position.
And is that something you would probably be hiring from outside?
There are internal and external candidates for librarian 1. So we would
Oh, there are.
consider-
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. So,
I didn't realize there would be titles in the library that could move up. That's fine.
it's not a promotion so much as what we have is we have a lot of part-time librarian ones, and
okay.
they're here, and it's it's not a promotion from a civil service standpoint, but it is a full-time job with benefits.
Sure.
So there are usually people who are interested in that. Anyway, that's all on that. I just wanted to keep you all abreast of what's going on.
I just have a question then.
Yes.
Is there such a thing as a part-time library too?
There's no reason you couldn't have one. We just haven't ever had that title.
Okay.
Librarian 2 is a relatively new title for us to have in the library, these sort of mid-level supervising librarians. We have one that oversees reference and research, sort of the internal workings of the library desk schedule. And then Kathy Brenner oversees programming and outreach. And so these are those two supervisors, and they supervise the librarian ones in their execution of those two functional areas. So this is
Okay.
a relatively new creation for us. So I don't think we've ever had a part-time librarian too, but there's no reason that we couldn't,
Okay.
if there was a business reason for that.
Great. Okay. So do you want to go on to the rest of the director's report?
Absolutely. So let's roll right into it. Buildings and grounds. We did get some. I don't know if you care. Anyway, I'll tell you anyway. We got these new. You may have seen them out there. Wind resistant sign holders. They flop
Yeah.
over when it gets windy because there was a lot of blowing around of signs. And the tables actually never moved. The signs blow all over the place. So this we had to add some extra sand. We put what we thought was an appropriate amount of sand into them and added more. So now that's it should be a little bit safer out there. And we redid the signs. Mostly this is a way to tell you that we redid the signs to try to make it a little bit clearer that texting or calling us, both are options and both work well. It was, when we were trying out the texting, we just kind of had it tacked up to the top. So now it's, there's one sign. Kristen increased the contrast of that sign to make it a little bit simpler, so that it's a little less, a little easier to read from a little further away. So that's, I think they're working well. Clearly, the service is working out there. So that's good. And then just briefly, we were invited to participate with the town on the meeting about nature-based gardening that the town was going to have, and I was away from the library, so Catherine and Kevin went in my place, and as usual, Kevin makes us look great. So he went over and was had some good conversations with the folks over the town, and there's some possibilities for programming in the future, sort of coordinated signage about plants, and then it's just all a goal towards more native plants, less herbicides, less fertilizer, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, everybody's interested in this, and if personally, I think if we could make the area outside town hall and the area outside the library, which we know is already used by the community a little bit like a park, you see people out there having picnics, and they enjoy the grounds. To make them just a little bit more of a showcase for native plants and native plantings and good gardening practices. So that's all in development. I was anytime the town reaches out and we can do some collaboration, I think that's good for everybody involved. So that was that. We did the seed library, super popular again. We're up over 450 seed requests, and more than 2,000 seed packets have gone out this spring. So we, far exceeded whole previous years. Last year was obviously a little bit of a shambles. This time last year, we all had a lot of other things on our mind. So the seed library really didn't go last year. But this year we were able to use a lot of the seeds that we had from last year, and it really, our new online seed ordering website that IT put together has worked out really well, so that people are finding that, and it's that has a short window where it gets a really intense use, and we're coming to the end of that really intense use, but it's still bumping along right now, so that's good.
If I have a question.
Yep, you bet.
The seed library, I love the idea. I think it's a great program. I was just wondering, how is it funded? Was there a grant, or did we just?
Nope, we fund it out of the library budget. Yep. So I think it's one of those things where were it more expensive and it needed to be funded by something, I think the Friends would absolutely jump in and fund that wholeheartedly. I just haven't asked them because the amounts of money involved in the seed library are relatively small for the collection. So
I'm
I
sorry,
think
the amount of money.
the amount of money that to fund the whole seed library is relatively small for collection money, for program money. So we haven't asked them to do that, but that's something I think that we could easily do if that was, if it continues to increase and the costs were to go up for the supplying the seeds, I think we would easily ask the Friends for that. I think.
Yeah, I had no complaint on the cost of it. Someone had asked me, how is it that they offer free seeds? And I thought, well, I don't know if there was a grant or something like that. So I was curious. Yeah.
Yeah. This got cooking about 3 years ago in libraries, and some libraries do a little bit more of getting seeds back from patrons. There are some issues with cross-pollination, and you have to take seeds from people who understand that a little bit more if you're going to then hand those out in the following year. And that's why we haven't taken that next step yet. Typically, libraries who are well, either throw the doors open and say, it's a tomato, it's fine. Or you work with some sort of more knowledgeable volunteers who know how to keep them separated and make sure they don't cross. Because everything we have in our seed library is open pollination. So there's no, they're not like some commercial seeds will breed once, but then not breed true after that. These are all, people can take those seeds, and then even if they don't come back to the library, they can then harvest the seeds from their zucchini and get more zucchini next year. So that was one of the tenets of our seed library program. So anyway, thank you. That's
Thanks.
Yeah, Jeff, I got a bunch of questions from it too. So it's definitely a great thing. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And it's very popular. And I think that it's one of those spaces I think we like to delight people sometimes, and maybe they don't see us in that space. But clearly I think it's been very popular this year. And I think with last year, people's focus on not necessarily homesteading, but being a little bit more home centered as we all were over the past 12 months. I think there's a greater interest in this, in gardening and starting your own seeds, whereas maybe before you just would have gone down to the store and bought your starts from there, So I think it was very timely. So I'm glad to see it's so popular. Just a little bit, I'd like to keep you up to date on some of our digital collections that aren't just ebooks and audiobooks. So we continue to digitize the historical record of the town and region. And we have a fairly active collection compared to many other libraries in our region about, we want to make sure that we can get our historical record digitized and then available to the public so that they don't have to contact us.
Franklin's coming in.
Oh.
So they don't have to contact us for those, to photocopy the records and then email them. It's better if people just can access them themselves without any further help. And that not only helps our patrons that are local, but also people worldwide. That used to happen a lot with the Spotlight. And that was the first time we sort of experienced that. When we digitized the Spotlight, we used to get requests from genealogists from all over the world that just ended as soon as they could Google them themselves and find what they were looking for directly. That's really what the library ought to be doing. And this, putting our collective cultural heritage online is all of our responsibilities, and we do it in our way. We take the records that, Frank is our leader on that, and he selects records that he believes are the most worthy and the most worthy of saving. We have a lot of records physically in the building, but these are the ones that are best to put up, and it takes quite a bit of labor to get them scanned and then appropriately, scanned into the right format and cataloged. We have, our cataloger Lisa from the Circ and Tech Services Department catalogs them and make sure they're put up properly in the regional catalog. So that's I like to include those every once in a while because it's important to remember. We have lots of these functions in the community, and one of them is partial keeper of the community's historical record. So those links are included right in the packet. We are working on launching a sort of patron chat function straight over the website. We've had different services in the past. This has met with various levels of low usually response, so we'll try another one. This one came packaged with our text function that we're using for the curbside pickup. So we're going to give it another try, and it may be that this is the right time for us to do that, where more people are accessing us online and need to chat with a librarian. So lots of great programs. Again, we continue to figure out what it is that people want. I wanted to specifically call out the email newsletter. The librarians are finding that shorter cycle news feed to be better and allow us to respond much more quickly to something that's topical. So they can put take a program idea, put it in that newsletter, and not necessarily wait for the longer bi-monthly footnotes cycle. So that email newsletter comes out every week, and we'll see people registering right away. We know that people are paying attention to that email newsletter. So that's good news. We always sort of wondered whether an email newsletter would hit, and this seems to be doing good. Of course, we are also freed right now from the other half of this, which is typically trying to find a room either in the community or a boardroom to have the class. And right now we're freed from that as well. So the programming librarians are able to have an idea, move idea from concept to implementation much faster than they have been able to in the past. So that's nice. You can read about all the individual programs. Coming back with a little trivia. The Irish Cooking Night was on St. Patrick's Day was a big hit. And we had some author visits, and I just think that watch for in the coming months that continuation of that same program series that has been very popular in the past. This is the Civil War Coffee and Conversation. This is done with our partnerships with Humanities New York. So that program series, the Federalist Papers was very popular for us. So this one we are expecting to be popular as well. It's always an interesting topic. There's always people who are interested in the Civil War. So that's good. And it is Natural Poetry Month. So our poets can submit, our regional poets can submit their poetry online and compete in our poetry contest. So moving on to just sort of statistics, we wanted to give you a whole look for an entire week of what our circulation looks like now that we're back in person. 55% of the transactions that are happening total are happening in person, so more than half, but not a lot more than half are in person, and the rest of those are either phone or text curbside pickup. So it doesn't necessarily represent total circulation because we're not tracking individual books going out and do in-person checkouts or curbside pickup checkouts have more books. We're just looking at total number of people that are coming in to transact something. As far as circulation is concerned. So that's just generally speaking the breakout of those transactions. I think it's interesting to note that while many people are interested in coming to the library and coming into the library, I think they've been happy that the library is open and able to come in the library and browse. At the same time, there are 45% of people are coming to the library and accessing their content through curbside pickup. So we will continue to monitor and watch that percentage because I think that's a factor in that is people's relative comfort level with coming into the building itself, right? That's, maybe not the only factor, but it's certainly a factor. And, obviously my goal would be to have in-person pickups increase as it becomes safe to do that and have, well, the world would be a better place if we had a higher percentage of in-person pickups. And that's, of course, that's everybody's goal. So there we are. We'll just continue to watch that. We had the Friends of the Library for a long time were purchasing Friends of the Library logo emblazoned bags for us. And having people do that turns out to be fairly expensive, a fairly expensive way to get bags. So the Friends of the Library have purchased a stamper, and they're going to have a volunteer project where they'll have folks come in and stamp a big stamp, and they'll stamp the Friends of the Library logo on the bag. And it's just a good, the Friends are frequently looking for a project where there is a task to do for the Friends, and this is a way for them to sort of begin to create some of those future Friends who will be more involved in the board, and just people want to be able to do something for the Friends right now. So this is a task we're setting up right now. And then, as Sherry mentioned, the installation of the credit card machine and credit card software is coming. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, as you can imagine. That's a complicated and sensitive project, so we'll get that done in the coming months. And then lots of good meetings, lots of good training. I know you guys like to have those. You can read about those. We don't need to talk about that right now. Circulation, this is the first month where we're actually comparing COVID to COVID. So this was, a half month of in-person browsing compared to a half month of absolute shutdown last year in 2020. So circulation is up for the first time in a year. Yay. So, this is, we are now in a full year of pandemic statistics. So that's interesting. That is an interesting world for us to live in. So those are there for you. You can see there's nothing too surprising there. I think if you focus down on the bottom of the columns on page 25, you'll see that there is continued increases of ebook, e-audiobook, e-magazine use. So the only use that's down was e-video. So that was when we introduced all those video streaming services last March. Use is still very robust, but down from that peak when in March of last year, people were looking for anything to do. And one of the things that we had was our new video services in Canopy and Hoopla to have those video streaming services. So that's all there. I won't go into too much detail on page 26 and 27. We can look this year, electric use looks totally normal. We'll continue to monitor that. Gas usage exactly just right in the norm. Continued increases totally on e-content use. And again, down the bottom of page 27, the bottom leftist portion of that, you'll see there's one of the lines is this pink line that just is a very, very steady increasing curve up. And that is the e-audiobook line. And that is a trend we don't expect to ever reverse or stabilize. Ebooks themselves, we expect to sort of come to some level and then it will kind of level off or increase slightly. But the number of cars that are being sold right now that don't have CD players is a lot. And so cars last a long time. So CD players will last a long time. But the audiobook on CD format is it's the long goodbye with that format, and it will continue for a long time. Already the majority of that use is electronic, and we don't expect that to reverse anytime soon. So it's by no means a dead format, but it's headed that direction. On the next page, 28, I just want to point out that this is Kristen's, has prepared our annual report to the community, which we are required by New York State to do. She changed the format a little bit. Obviously, it was a good year for us to try out something new. And she actually received compliments from people on the annual report, which seems very interesting. Kristen was like, people are complimenting an annual report, so it must be very well done. So I like it. I want to highlight it. I think that's that it was well done, and I think it's very informative infographic. So that's my
People love the infographics.
They do. They do.
They really do. So I just wanted to ask about the e-newsletter and whether we're getting any statistics back on like open rates and with the package that we're using.
So yeah, we do get that. It's spiked at the beginning at it was pretty high for the average. It was 44%. We're hovering around 30%. I'm testing some topics that tend to do more. They just tend to, when it's big news, like, oh, library's going open, we have more of a spike there. But yeah, I can pull all kinds of stats for that. Big open rate, not a huge click-through rate. I think people like to read what's there. Usually the programs, again, that the librarians bring through, that I can see them clicking through and then signing up, and then I go in the calendar and see what's going on there. And we started with a list of about 14,000 people kind of from the registration just through in the course of, I think it's been since almost a year since we've done it. We're down to about 10,000 core users. I get maybe 1 or 2 unsubscribes a week. And they tend to be from people that have never opened anything. So I think we've got a good base there. But if there's anything else you want from that, I can, like I said, I can pull all kinds of numbers from that if anyone's interested.
Jeff, I have a question. I know there was an issue about quarantine in your report,
Yep.
The written report. I've checked out I went in and browsed, and I checked out a couple of books that have a very distinct smell to them. And it's not like mold. So I was just curious, once the books are in the shed, do they get sprayed with anything, or
So
just?
that's an interesting. Would you describe it as a chlorine smell? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Right. So we use chlorine ionizer, not on all the books that come in, but so there's two streams that happen. One, books that are returned through the book drop go into the shed, and for right now they sit for 48 hours. And then they're brought in and checked in and moved on to the shelf. So we take that as the cleaning of them. For books that people grab in the library, look at, and then put on a cart, we use a chlorine ionizer, which we spray the outside of the books down. And we use that on a lot of high touch surfaces as well. So there's two cleaners that we use. We use that one, and then we use a cleaner, a hydrogen peroxide based cleaner. So we use those for, mice and keyboards and door handles. And, again, the preponderance of the evidence is that surface transmission of COVID just is not the main vector for this particular bug. Proving a negative is impossible. And we have to go with the best guidance from the CDC, which is that it's maybe a 1 in 10,000 chance where someone can get, the surface transmission. It's, worry about your HVAC system, not about the surfaces. But I think we still do due diligence because, noroviruses and other viruses are also out there too. So we'll continue our enhanced cleaning protocols. But you're bringing up a point that you didn't ask is that you can see the Directors Association of the Library is going to be voting likely to continue to remove that quarantine as we move forward here. I'd like to be in the middle of the pack on that stuff. I don't need to lead on it. And, but just that. And then again, there's no guarantee that if someone picks up a book in the library that they put it on the red card. I think most people like to do that. But just like at the grocery store, somebody can pick something up and put it down too. So, clearly I don't believe the library has been shown to be a hotbed of virus transmission in the community. So I think we're just all coming to this new conclusion. So that's the source of the smell, is that ionizer. And we used it a lot in the beginning, and now we use it a little bit more sparingly.
Jeff, I wondered too, along the same subject, that other libraries have lifted the quarantine entirely, and then some others are doing 24 hours, and we are still at the 48 hours. So that's not quite the middle. That's the end, right? Fair
enough. Yep. Well, so we will be moving to a 24-hour quarantine shortly. And then we're going to stick with what the directors go with. And again, it's a suggestion. And some libraries, they just drop it completely. So we're all going to get there. It's just what's the glide path to do that.
Right. And I didn't know if we had a timeline set for moving the quarantine, or is that something we're voting on later? No. Okay.
We don't. Yeah, I don't think it needs a vote. I mean, I think that's just something we work as on part of our response. If that's something.
Yeah, I just know we were going to be talking about the reopening plans and things a little later.
Yep.
So I didn't know if that was included in that. Okay.
You got it. Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
mostly
great.
there because I was gone for the last week, so I didn't have a chance to move on. It's easier to do that when I'm here. So.
Sure. Are there any questions for Jeff on the report? For the questions? Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. Welcome back. You had UHLS report? So you have any-
One good piece of, well, I don't know about good. I guess it's good. UHLS heard about some additional 2020 construction grant monies that got turned back. So we once again, I think this might be the fourth time we've gone back to the 2020 grant awards, and it's about $26,000, not, chump change, but what it's allowed us to do is bring now 6 of the 8 construction projects up to full eligible funding. We'll vote on that on Wednesday. The remaining 2 are bigger projects that are pretty close to being fully funded anyway. And I understand that there may be some additional 2020 money still coming back to the system. So we may be doing it yet again. The annual program awards are going to be going out, the applications, pretty soon. And I guess they've dialed it back and realized that everything would be pandemic themed during the past year. So no need to call out anything special. And then I did forward some information about the 2021 budget news, the restoration, particularly of the grant money back to the $34 million, which results in about 1.9 million for Upper Hudson, which is fantastic news. And I feel like it's going to be another long process, but I really hope that a lot of libraries put some great proposals in, and I really wish we were going to be one of them, but I don't think we will. So, but that's the news I have.
Can I just piggyback on that? Lisa was kind enough to put me in touch with Mary Fellows from the Upper Hudson group because of my work in diversity and social justice. So just so the board knows, I provided Upper Hudson with a list of consultants, a draft timeline. They wanted to know, what does a strategic plan look like if you're going to go for it. And so I gave a kind of rough outline of, based on my experience, and also tapped my resources for written material on strategic planning around diversity and social justice, particularly for libraries, then more in general. And I gave them some feedback on a survey and a call for grants that's about to go out, just in terms of language. So just so they folks knew that I was doing that. And I gave all that material also to Jeff.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. Pandemic response plan. You want to hit that?
Okay. So the pandemic response plan is in draft form, is up on our webpage right now. It was sent to you all for email via review, and it is linked to the page right next to the board packet. So what I am seeking is, I've already heard back from some of you about that. What I'd like to do is present that for vote so we can make it official on the website.
Yeah, Jeff, I had one question on it. I thought it was well written. The very last section talks about reimbursement or setting up people outside their house.
Yeah. Yep. It's it's part of the guidance from New York State that we address this. So the way we address this, it wasn't necessary for this pandemic. You know, who knows what the next pandemic will be. And it's just, you know, what we said was that if it was required, if we had to, I think what we would do is just close. If it was that bad that we needed to put someone up in a hotel, but you know, the possibility, I guess, could exist, whereupon we might decide to do that. So we just mentioned it. It's a case by case basis, dictated by federal, state, or local guidance. That's
okay. So that was a required element of the plan.
It was. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
You know, say, how would you address this if people, you know, if you had someone who was, you know, and I think this happened in the last pandemic. They had people who were required to work, were absolutely exposed and did not want to go home, or maybe it was not safe for them after they'd been exposed to go home to their families. They were, you know, put up in these different ways. It stretches credulity to me, for me to imagine that could happen in the library, but there's a lot of things that I've thought that I wouldn't lay my money down on anymore. So it's in there.
Okay. That sounds good. That's the only question I had.
Yep. You bet.
I don't know if other people had any questions on the plan.
Oh, sorry, Mary, you're muted, but
yeah.
Jeff, are you asking us to vote on it tonight, or
yes,
to get back to you? Okay, I haven't
Is
had
this
a
the one
chance
we
to
just
read.
got an hour ago?
yes, but it was sent to you via email last month. So it's you've had it for more than a month now. So
Okay.
Do people need a little bit more time to review it, or Jeff, do you want to walk through it, or are we ready to vote? you
I
think?
haven't read it.
Okay. You think a walkthrough would be helpful, Mary, or?
Well,
I think I must have missed that email. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Jeff, is there a time frame that you need? Do you need this to be approved at this meeting, or can you?
So it needed to be up on our website by April 1st. So it's there. Are the pandemic response plan police going to come after us? Probably not. I think it's very much in concert with all of the others. So if we wanted to vote it officially next month, I think that's okay.
It's up on draft, right? Because it's part of the board
Correct.
material. So,
Yeah, I was going to say we can just put subject to board approval or something on it.
It is. It's got draft right on it. You
Okay.
got it. Yeah.
Draft on it,
I mean, I think this is supposed to address the next pandemic. We have the board approved phase reopening and pandemic response. You know, the phase reopening plan for what we're doing right now is all been approved, and that's what, you know, that's the playbook we're following for this one. This was required by New York State that we address the next pandemic that might happen. And I think as long as it's a respiratory illness, which seems like a reasonable guess that it might be, you know, in whatever that happens, I think that this response plan would work well next time, when I hope that I'm not here to deal with it.
But it is interesting that they have, like, for example, the quarantine period is 10 days or 14 days, which applies to COVID.
Right.
Right.
Yep. No, I gotcha. It's yep.
The next thing could be entirely different, but yeah.
I keep saying, like, what if it's a flesh-eating disease? You know, it's you don't know, and but I think they're playing the odds that it's likely to be some sort of a flu-ish. You know, what would a pandemic be? You know, if it's Ebola, this plan isn't going to help that much. So, you know, I don't want to ill wish. We're not through this one yet. So, it was a good exercise. I think, you know, we followed the playbook. We borrowed a lot from our current existing plan. I think it would be impossible for us not to have read that experience into there, and then went straight through the guidelines from the state.
I didn't really see anything that was different from our current existing plan.
Yeah, that's
so yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's relatively non-controversial. It was required that we have it reviewed in concert with the union, which we absolutely did. I will say that the health expert from the union was very helpful, came back and actually suggested some language and improved the plan after that process. So they're good with it. And, you know, this is our best thinking for our next pandemic.
Yeah. Given the length of it, I wouldn't necessarily recommend a walkthrough of it tonight, but perhaps since it's up, maybe just have people read it for approval for next meeting, because it sounds like a few members maybe just need more time and maybe would feel more comfortable waiting and then approving it as long as it's posted as a draft. Does that?
You got it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mark?
Just want to make sure that people understand there's required elements, and you know, I mean, that my question at the end was, my prior question was trying to figure out what's required to be in the plan and what's not required. So, but that's fine. I think people should take the time to read it, and we can put on the agenda for next month. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Sounds, yeah, sure, no problem. New York State budget update.
Okay,
Good
so Lisa gave it to most of us already. She talked about that. I think the piece that I would say would be to echo what she said, which was the $34 million for library construction is a good chunk, and it might be good. I think the timeline is short, but it may well be possible-ish for us to get something put together for the boiler in time. So, you know, it would be that's the only project I can conceive of.
Thought of that one.
That isn't super minor. That might be fundable under this grant for energy efficiency purposes. So.
Well, as long as you brought that topic up, I was going to ask a question and under old business, but do we kind of have an idea where we are with that? Do we have an idea with engineers? You know, would you have a timeline? What's going on?
That's a great question. So it's parked right now. So we will. We had a conceptual conversation about how we might proceed with reviewing, you know, getting some RFPs from architects or engineers on this project. But that's where it is right now.
And that's fine. Do we have to do an RFP, or could we, you know, like I'm thinking, could we reach out to somebody like Tim McGrath and ask if he could recommend 2 or 3 local firms that we might want to talk to? Like, we might be able to save some time not going through a contract reporter type process, but inviting people in.
Right. So we could do that. I did contact the school district. They're working with an architecture firm out of Syracuse. I don't know for that size of project if that's worth it or not. We'd have to talk about, you know, travel expenses included in that. But I reached out to Greg Nolte at the school district for their architecture firm, and it seems, you know, last time we went with an engineer as the prime, there is a lot of architecture building stuff included in this. It's not as simple as just replacing the boiler. So I think, you know, most projects the architect is the primary designer, and I think that this project would be similar to that. So that's my opinion.
Okay.
I just have a question just on the process. I've been through bonds before with the school district and all, but you know, at what you're looking at, would you be interviewing like a construction manager and everything else? I mean, I just don't know how the library does it, for especially at a smaller scale.
Right.
But so I just, besides architects and then the construction firm, I mean, do you also look at a construction man? I mean, how does it work?
So that's all that would be downstream from where we are. The elements that would be required for us to apply for a New York State construction grant was that we had a plan in place, and then we would typically pay someone who could actually do the work. So when that plan is is approved, then they hand that over to a contractor that we pay to estimate the project, and those are the two elements that we need to have in place to apply for the grant, which happens over the summer. So it's a tight timeline, but it's a lot of money to leave sitting on the table for the state to approve that.
Yeah.
And part of our goal here with the boiler project was to use this as an opportunity to sort of interview, right, a couple of other engineering firms, right, just to build our backlog of people we could work with.
Correct.
Yeah, I think we should that would be nice to be able to reply.
Yep.
I mean, on that.
And the timelines at New York State Ed for the review of the projects seem to be relatively short right now as compared to the last projects that we did were incredibly long. So I think it's we have a fighting chance to get that stuff back before the close of that deadline. The real deadline to have all the pieces in place for approval from the state might be sometime in the fall.
Mhm.
Just, I misspoke. For some reason, I had flopped into the long range plan. That's when I was talking about construction manager. You're just talking about the boiler project, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
yes,
got
yes,
it.
yes.
Got it.
This would be a small enough project. There's no bonding. It's not that size. The boiler replacement project wouldn't be anything like that big. This is if you said what's a bite-sized project?
Yeah, my mind had wandered into the next agenda item. That's why. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. Any other new business? Okay, old business, the long range planning update. Harmeet, you want to do that?
So we met with Paul on the 19th. Just getting through my notes here. So he had provided us some kind of high level estimates for what we were calling phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Jeff, remind me, does he owe us a follow up on that?
He took the input that we gave them from that meeting, and he's really supposed to come back with a substantially put together package that is getting ready to be. We'll have a final discussion at that meeting. If we're all comfortable, that would then begin to get ready to move to the full board.
Yeah, so we've got preliminary numbers, and like Jeff said, right, we can start to make those numbers into a more concrete plan, right, that we can bring in front of the board here.
Yep.
I was thinking today that I'm not sure the time frame for that, and I wanted to raise the possibility of whether or not that meeting could be an in-person meeting with the board. And I would suggest, if that's even an option, that if we use the community room, and depending on people's vaccination status and virus levels, we each could even have our own table and all the rest, and they could be projecting. I just know the way I process things, it's and I'll work with it if we're on Zoom, but having things and then budget, the diagrams and numbers over here and all the faces, it's going to be I will tell you right now, it's going to be a little challenging if we're going to follow that. And I'm not sure if time frame wise, and then even personal comfort level wise, if people would be willing to have like a huge overview in a huge room where we're spaced, and depending on people's, again, the virus levels and the vaccination levels. I know that would be something I would be interested in discussing. But again, I'm not sure if people are at all comfortable with that.
So let me just, I think this is actually very timely because we just got some more information about this very recently, that the governor is now down to approving a 2-week rolling approval for our virtual meetings. So before they were a month at a time, now it's 2 weeks. So I think we can see that the fact that we're doing this meeting via Zoom is itself something that the state government has allowed us to do. And so the pre-approval of those by executive order timeframe keeps decreasing. So it's timely that you ask that question about in-person meetings. It may well come to a point where we will at some point not be allowed to continue to do this via Zoom. Two, the second part of that, an in-person meeting, it has to be open to the public. So while I think maybe, I have no idea if people would be comfortable sharing their vaccination status or their comfort level, at the same time, we have to be prepared for the fact that people have to be able to access that meeting in the physical space. So maybe the weather's decent enough, we could do it outside under a tent or something. So I'm willing to be creative about that, but I think it is a timely discussion for us to begin to think about that.
Jeff, following up on what you said, that it would have to be a public meeting and the public would have to be allowed to attend.
Yeah.
Given that statement, my next question would be, well, not that I don't want the public, but can we still say we are going to do it? We choose to do it in the community room because we don't know what the weather's going to be outside. And we believe that the safe number of people in that room is X. So the first, 15 people are the board and our contingent. And then there's room for X number of other people.
Yeah, that's seems reasonable, but I will look into that exact thing. I'll just make sure. The other thing is if we might be able to offer an overflow room or an overflow space if we record it and it's online, is in a yes and sort of thing. That might be, even if the board members are in person, there's room for some people. I doubt we'd get 15 people in for a board meeting, but you never know. And, maybe there's another accommodation that could be made for folks in excess of that number. So we could have that discussion as well.
Yeah. Or if you could live stream, we're meeting in person, but you live stream, I don't know. I just know that, as I said, I was thinking, okay, that big room, if we each have our own table and we're away from each other and then they could be projecting things. I just know that for me, it would benefit the discussion, and especially if something as large as the long range plan and how much time and energy has been put into it and how much money might be involved. I was just going to push, at least introduce the topic or the idea that we might have if it's feasible and safe, an in-person discussion of that.
Great.
Okay, great. Any other questions on the long range steering committee update? Okay, other old business people have.
Yep. I'll just put in under old business. At the same time, the long range services plan, which is sort of goes part and parcel with the long range building plan that we've been, most of our attention has been focused on that right now. We really had what we thought was a very solid services plan done pretty quickly, and we were ready to move forward with those two things in concert together. Catherine and Chris and I are going to meet on that plan because there are just a ton of things that have to get changed from the last. The world has changed fundamentally from the last time we did that. So we're going to be looking at that. There's a lot of elements that may be expanded, other elements that we have to pull back from, and we'll be working on that hand in hand. And hopefully, again, because this document is fully under our control, we can get those. We can bring that in whenever it needs to be brought in to have those two things come together in concert.
Great. That's good.
I actually have a question about the long range plan. I didn't get my mute off before we moved on. So I know that there's been a lot of time and energy spent in the initial plans in the phases 1, 2, and 3. Is it a correct assumption that although the full board would not throw all that out in its discussion, but it's open for discussion? Because I assume that a number of us have not seen, well, we've seen some preliminary material, and I know we did that tour, but I would hope that there's a good exchange of ideas and questions throughout, especially in terms of costs and all the rest, without scrapping the whole thing, obviously. But I would imagine that there's plenty of room for discussion.
There is, and that's why why it goes to the full board. And at the same time, the other area with a lot of input and discussion goes as a long-range facilities plan turns into an actual process for design, that's a much more serious discussion and a much more involved discussion than the long range plan discussion, which is a conceptual, high level discussion. And I think, it's important. Input at this stage is also very important, but also when it starts to become dollars and actual plans for moving forward, and that becomes a very political question. I think that's exactly.
So just so I'm clear, again, I'm sorry to play so much catch up here, and maybe it's just, again, my trying to understand everything. So what you're going to be presenting is conceptual design. Is that?
Yeah, and
Correct,
while it
good.
looks, while there are sketches of buildings and ideas about the way the traffic flow might happen, or where we could expand the building, we certainly had an architect. There's a reason we have an architect do this portion of the plan, because they know what's possible and what's not possible much more than you say, Jeff, where are you going to add on a piece of the building? His job was to look at that with an architect's eye, but it is conceptual in that fact, and it's not a design. It is a concept. Those phases are concepts. They're concepts that were taken from the community, from the staff, from the board, harvested all that information, tried to get a consensus thing together. But it is also, it wouldn't be what the final actual construction might be. It might look a lot like that, but yes, there's still ample input at all these stages.
Great. That explanation was very helpful for me.
Very good.
So thank you.
Okay, great. Old business, other old business again? Okay, future business. Any subject area people want to discuss? Okay, public participation, another check on that?
I will go check right now. Nothing new.
Okay, great, thanks. So now we're going to move into an executive session, so we need to.
So I have the language for that. If you give me 1 second.
Okay.
Get this put up here, and basically on a motion by somebody with a second by somebody, the board adjourned to executive session to discuss contract negotiation pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law.
So moved.
Okay, second. Ramit, great. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstention? Okay, motion passes. So we'll move into executive session.
Okay, give me a second to get the live stream turned off.
Sure.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.